Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this quote from former President Obama, which I showed in my last video. And I wanted to go over it a little bit more because there's so much about it that just fascinates me. Again, this is from a speech that he gave in at the campus of Stanford a few weeks ago. This is what I'm given to understand. And I don't know if this was during, actually, I say it's during a speech, but my guess is that this was probably during a Q&A session. He was probably asked a question, and this was probably his answer. The reason why I say that is it doesn't really flow the way a prepared speech does. There's some forced metaphors and I mean, I'm not saying it was delivered badly or anything, but it just doesn't have it has this sort of off the cuff kind of feel to it. So I imagine he was asked a question by somebody, like, what are we going to do about all of these conspiracy theorists? What are we going to do about all these Trump supporters? What are we going to do about all these undesirable people out there? These Russian bots, these Putin stooges, these alt-right kind of people, whatever, what have you. And this was maybe he was asked to say how are they working this? How are these the people who are opposed to everything that we know to be good, who refuse to bow the knee before us and our superior liberal left ideas, our globalist ideas, which are so infinitely superior and so worthy of reverence, and yet they're out there, making gains right now with all of the stuff that they're putting forward, all of this hateful, terrible, racist, sexist, homophobic stuff, and so Obama's response was this. He said, and I quote, and you can go back to the video yesterday to see his Obama-esque delivery of this, with his speech patterns and everything. But this is just my quote of what he said. He said, "You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage." Okay. You have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions. That's an interesting thing to go from flooding a country's public square with enough raw sewage, that's pretty bad, to flood a country with the public square with raw sewage. That's a bad thing, obviously. But then he follows that with, you just have to raise enough questions. So we're not supposed to raise questions? Raising questions is bad? We're just supposed to accept what we're told? This is revealing. I mean, I think he does actually think that. We should believe what we're told by the experts. Who are they? Who are them? They are the experts, and we shouldn't raise questions. Just like again, I will never tire of bringing this up. There was an article in the New York Times not long ago. Not that I read the New York Times or much of the media anyway, or not that I attempt to follow the news very much. But there was an actual article, like, just so brazenly saying being a critical thinker is overrated. You shouldn't strive to be a critical thinker. Stop with this critical thinking nonsense, and just accept that what the experts tell you is true. And by the experts, of course, they mean a certain select group of people. Not everyone, not by any means everyone who would be deemed an expert, but this particular clique of people who have been promoted to a position of power, we should just forget our critical thinking and believe them. That's what this article was basically saying. If you can believe that they were that brazen about it, they were. So anyway, you just have to raise enough questions, plant enough conspiracy theorizing. See, this is what makes me think that this was an off-the-cuff kind of response, because plant enough conspiracy theorizing, that's just a very forced metaphor there. It doesn't really work. He's just, saying things off the top of his head. But it's not surprising that he would use the word conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorizing. This is the same Obama who a few years ago talked about how we need to curate the internet. I still remember this. I remember talking about this in it was when I was doing my podcast before I really was on YouTube that much. He talked about we need a curator of truthiness. Truthiness being that Colbert word. Back when he was at least a smidge clever, before he just became this absolute stooge, this propagandist for the establishment that he is today. So Obama said we need to have a curator of truthiness, and that's what we have now. That's what happens when you look up a certain a word or phrase that has been flagged, or you use a term like New World Order or Illuminati or some other term that's been flagged, and you use it. Use it in a title of a YouTube video. Then you get that little disclaimer thingy from Wikipedia, saying, "Here's what really is going on," and that's the curator. That Obama wanted a curator for the internet, and he got one. You have to raise enough questions, plant enough conspiracy theorizing, that citizens no longer know what to believe. So to people with this perspective, they honestly think this is what is going on. They think, or maybe they don't really think this. Maybe they're being disingenuous. It depends on how much they know and how much they're just dupes of the system. Someone like Obama, surely he's high up, high in the echelon, but I'm sure that he's got people pulling his strings too. So, I don't think he's entirely being cynical when he says these things. He must, on some level, believe them. That people, the people who question the official story of, let's say, what happened over the last 2 years, or 9/11, or the events that supposedly happened at a certain school in Connecticut, or pick your course of events, and with so many holes in them that more holes than Swiss cheese, and people see that there are inconsistencies, and they say, hey, that doesn't make much sense. Maybe this is what happened instead. Maybe that's what happened instead. But what they're telling us happened couldn't have happened because of X, Y, and Z. Some people think that that's just when people conspiracy theorize, or when they come up with alternative explanations to what we've been preached, the things that they've preached at us constantly, day after day. You want to talk about raw sewage, mainstream media is raw sewage, or it does manufacture. It floods our senses with raw sewage. But he's talking about he's saying that to go against them, to go against their ideas, that they're trying to seed into our minds. That's flooding the nation's public square with raw sewage. So it's, call it gaslighting if you want, call it projection if you want. It's something like that. So you just have to raise enough questions, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. So again, he's talking about this like it's a cynical plot to make citizens distrustful of the government. I'll go on reading. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, to the possibility of truth, or in the possibility of truth, the game is won. So, again, I'm reminded of the comedian, this black comedian, I don't know his name, somebody, sort of in the mold of, Dave Chappelle. He said, people who don't, I don't understand people who don't believe that in any conspiracy theory. Maybe most conspiracy theories aren't true, but you think all of them are untrue? You really think the government is batting 1,000? It was a very, that's really laying it on the line, and sort of exposing the kind of people who think conspiracy theorizing is bad or stupid or crazy. You really think that the official news, the mainstream media, the government, the official government line, you really think they're all batting 1,000? No. You should definitely, if you think that, then you're the unreasonable one, not the so-called conspiracy theorists. So, so you plan enough conspiracy theorizing, raise enough questions, flood the country's public square with enough raw sewage that citizens no longer know what to believe. And once they lose their trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, and the possibility of truth, the game is won. The game is won by the bad guys. So what I find interesting about this is the kind of speech that you would have heard some ultra-conservative give, like if this were, say, 1964. You might hear somebody from the John Birch Society talk this way about communists, or about liberal dupes for communists. That this is the way that they operate, and that they're fomenting all of this distrust. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions. Okay. See, I mean, this is phrased in such a way that it's actually funny to me. Like, once they lose trust in their leaders. Ooh, really? It's just such a bad thing when people don't just trust politicians and pundits and political hacks and self-appointed spokesmen, celebrity spokesmen. We should trust these people. We should trust these people that have been appointed to preach to us about things. We should just trust them. But it's a terrible thing that now that we've lost trust in them. And in mainstream media, he actually uses the phrase mainstream media. I didn't think anyone actually used the phrase mainstream media except when they were using it in a disparaging way. It's become a disparaging term, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, mainstream media. But here Obama is using it as like, he's saying it in a good way. He's saying, you should trust the Washington Post. You should trust the New York Times. You should trust CNN. And it's just such a bad thing. It's like there's all these people out there all these bad actors spreading raw sewage, raising questions. Ooh, no, don't do that. Don't raise questions. Planting enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe, and now they don't even trust their leaders. Can you believe that? They don't trust their quote unquote leaders. I would say they're rulers. They're appointed rulers. I wouldn't call them leaders. I mean, they do lead in a way, but I certainly don't see them as. I don't. They don't lead me, and hopefully they don't lead you either. And so you lose trust in their leaders, lose trust in mainstream media, lose trust in political institutions. Oh no, we're going to actually think that Congress is not trustworthy. We're going to actually think that, I don't know, name another institution. The Federal Reserve isn't trustworthy. We're going to think the IRS isn't trustworthy. We're going to think the FBI isn't trustworthy. That we're going to start doubting the integrity of the CIA. And he's saying this like it's a bad thing. And the possibility of truth. I don't think that we've lost. I think one engages in these kinds of questions and makes these kinds of inquiries, and comes to certain conclusions out of an earnest desire to find the truth. But what he's saying is, people used to trust that the truth was what they were told the truth was, and they don't trust that anymore. And he's actually right in this regard, because when America was a more high trust society, back in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s, I would say, if you asked a random sampling of people, do you trust the government? In the 40s and 50s, like I think I remember reading studies where this had been done, where these kind of questions had been asked, and like 85-90%, something like that, would say yes. The overwhelming majority would say yes, I trust the government. Yes, I trust the president. Yes, I trust the political institutions. Yes, I trust our leaders. Yes, I trust the ruling oligarchy. They didn't phrase the questions like that, but there was a time when people did trust. They actually trusted implicitly. They believed in their leadership. Do you trust the media? Yeah, of course. Why would the media lie? They're just looking out for us. That's what they thought back then. Today, you ask a random sampling of people those same questions, and that number is way, 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 way down. And that's actually the one way in which our society has changed for the better. Probably not the only way, but all of the ways in which we have conspicuously declined over the last 60, 70 years, that's one way in which we have improved. We don't trust these people, these institutions, the way that people used to. People in the past didn't think that they were being naive. They just thought, yeah, I'm an American. I support America. These are American institutions, so therefore I trust them. But that ain't the case anymore. So once that happens, once people lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media and political institutions, and the possibility of truth, the game is won. So this is how we do it. This is how we do it. Anyway, I just thought it was there. I was so intrigued that I had to come back and take a second look at these words of Obama. Obama as a representative of the elite, of the ruling class, if you like, and just look at what his what his perspective is, because this is pretty much identical to the perspective of all of those who consider themselves mainstream or centrist or neoliberal or whatever word you want to use. I just think it's really valuable to look at these words and break them down and see what's really being said. So I hope this has been helpful to some of you, or enjoyable, or whatever. Thanks for watching.